Thank you for joining the Conley Show. This is episode number 6, and today with me I have Matt. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good. Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm really pleased and grateful to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. You're from Sydney, Australia?
Yeah, I'm from Sydney.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time.
Yeah.
Lovely place, though.
You guys are in winter right now, right?
Spring currently. So
Spring.
yes, I suppose, though it's warming up really quickly. I got to say, outside it's 8 a.m. right now. It's a beautiful sunny morning. We're very blessed.
Yeah, and just for people listening, it's 6 p.m. September 22nd. It's 8 a.m. September 23rd for Matt. So there is a big time difference. I've never flown before, so if I was ever to make it to Australia, that would be quite the flight. Today, I wanted to talk about mental health awareness, mental health illness. And the point of the Conley Show is to interview people from all walks of life, because I truly believe that everyone has something to teach us. And not only do I want to try to produce a good podcast, I mean, half the battle is just doing it, but I want to be able to express the curious mind. I'm curious about all kinds of things. So interviewing different people, everybody's got something to say. So I really appreciate you coming on. Today's episode, like I said, is all about mental health awareness. Mental illness is something I've suffered from personally in the years past, continue to take medication for today. And it's something I had to learn to live with. Something that I had to learn to do is to keep going with life, even on the days you didn't want to. Some days it's just you're bound to bed. Things like getting up, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, it's difficult for people sometimes. But no matter how hard I tried, I just didn't want to do my daily routines. I went through this for years, and because I really didn't want to talk to my doctor about it, I went untreated for a while. Maybe it was just me, but I felt that there was this stigma about talking about mental health and mental health awareness. Admitting you need help was a bad thing, I thought. And after receiving help, talking to doctors, going to therapy once every few weeks, I began to realize that you don't have to suffer. And there are great resources available to people, really available to anyone who's going through tough times, mental health illness. And the sooner you begin talking to your doctor, the better. Because let's say you have to get on the right medication, sometimes it's a trial and error learning the medication you have to be on before it works. And today I brought Matt on because in his profile, he talks about a personal experience that he's had with his mental health. And so he's here to also bring mental health awareness. Matt, so you don't have to go into any details you don't want to, man, but tell me the story. What happened? You said you're a paraplegic from a failed suicide attempt at 16?
Yeah. So January 9th, 2016 was when I went and attempted suicide. I jumped off a building 35 meters high and was found about 7 hours later, and woke up in a hospital bed 2 weeks later with 35 injuries in total. I think that was the number. Yeah. And basically the main ones being a spinal cord injury and my brain injury at the time. Thankfully that wasn't severe. Though what it's left me with spinal cord injury is I'm in a wheelchair. And so though I don't believe that's permanent, that's a whole other conversation right there.
Yeah.
To have down the line. But yeah.
So, okay. So you jumped off a bit. What was going through your mind before you jumped? Just you were in a bad place mentally?
I'd been thinking about it for 4 years before that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the first time I'd been thinking about it. And as a matter of fact, I'd actually visualized how it was going to look. Because for so long I had believed so firmly that I was worthless and that I was a waste of space. Those two phrases, they stood out to me, and they were my identity because I believed them. So this was no new thought. And like I said, I knew exactly how I was going to do it, where I was going to do it, the time of day I was going to do it. I just didn't know when I was going to do it.
Right.
And visualizing this day in, day out for over a year, honestly, it's like I've written a movie script. And I remember, Austin, I snuck out of my house
So this was in
And
the middle of the night?
yeah, it was about like 11 o'clock at night. And when I used to sneak out, though, I never did it the same way I did this time around. Usually I'd sneak out through the window in my garage, though I'd leave it a crack open just so I could get back in. But there was no thought of that. I I didn't want to come back, and so I shut it.
Yeah.
And there was no emotion attached to that, though, at the time. There was a heavy amount of numbness and a dark, dark monologue going on in my own mind.
Yeah.
When I was it's a 15-minute walk, by the way, to get to the shopping center that I jumped.
Yeah.
So I had plenty of time to think about it and turn back or have a second thought. No, but there was nothing. When I was when I got on the building, what was going through my mind was just how much this was going to be needed. I hated the fact that I was still alive. For 4 years, I'd been feeling this way. The pain it brought was so immense. And on the outside, honestly, I looked perfect. Everything, like my body physically, like I was obsessed with the gym. I looked great. The marks in school, I was doing so well. I was quite popular as well. No family struggles. Like, what the hell's going on?
Right.
You wouldn't guess it. And then, yeah.
And that's
jumped.
just it. You hear of people who, they have these glamorous lives, like I forget his name, Chester Bennington, Lincoln Park, Anthony Bourdain, TV personalities. They have the money, they have the fame. They should have a perfect life. And if someone looking on the outside, they do. But really, it just goes to show you that mental health, what it can do to somebody. And if you're not in the right mindset, it can really be the difference between life and death. So you sneak out in the middle of the night, you go to the shopping center. Now you get to the roof. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, I get onto it. Yeah, and I just.
Yeah, and when you jumped, you thought that was it. You had no plans of going back home. So you said you were found a couple hours later. So you jump. Are you unconscious at this point?
I was found. I found around about 5:30 in the morning by some tradies. They were doing some construction at the time in the area. So I was there for about 6 or 7 hours, just laying there.
Just laying there. And how messed up are you? Broken bones, I'm assuming, broken legs. Are you feeling anything at this point, or you just don't remember? You just remember waking up in the hospital.
I remember jumping. I remember a split second in the air. I don't remember hitting the ground. And everything after that is a blur until I wake up in hospital. And the one thing going through my mind constantly was, I had firmly believed that I was worthless, and I hated the fact that I was still alive. And if I was worthless beforehand, and the only goal I had for myself was to end my own life, and I couldn't do that right.
So are you pathetic? Before you get to this point, are you talking to doctors? Does anybody know about this, or is it just you?
So it's interesting you say that. Beforehand, before injury, for over a year, I had not told anyone, a single person, how I was thinking or feeling. I kept it all to myself. I didn't want to be a burden. Before that, I had very rarely told people.
Yeah.
Only if I was put in situations where I felt like I had to, i.e., when I was younger, when I was 13, I got heavily involved in drugs, developed an addiction. My girlfriend at the time, she found out, and she gave me an ultimatum, and she got it out of me, and I shared why I was getting high and all that stuff, and also stuff she didn't know. And like situations like that brought it out of me. But I never really liked willingly telling people. I didn't like it.
Yeah, who does? No one likes to say, "Hey, I'm in a bad place." And also, too, for people who are in a bad place, they might not want to admit that they're in a bad place. They may want to live this lie where everything is fine. They go to work with a smile on their face. They tell friends whenever somebody says, "Oh, how are you?" Good. You don't say anything different. You don't say, "Oh yeah, I'm bad." You just continue living this lie saying you're good. So tell me about okay, so after you have this scare, talk a little bit about how family treated you from that point on. Did things get better? I'm assuming. Did things get worse? How did that go about?
So when I was in hospital, it was like everyone was walking on eggshells. It's like I was like this fragile snowflake. Like, I don't know what other word to
Yeah,
use, but they treated me like I was, about to break. And so they were so cautious, and they watched everything they said. And my parents, they were treating me like they would say yes to everything. They couldn't say no, and I hated it. I
yeah,
hated it. The thing is, I have a brother and sister, both younger than me. They were getting neglected, and I could see that. And I called them out, and I said, "Look, you can't be treating me different to how you treat them too. You can't be treating me different to how you used to."
yeah,
I really didn't like it, because now I'm in a situation where my independence, personal power, choices, that's all been stripped away from me. I now, because I was stuck in hospital for 4 months and then rehab for another 6 weeks after that. And I had to really, in a way, prove, and like, not that I had to, but I felt like I did at the time, because before my injury, again, like from the outside looking perfect, I had all the freedom in the world. I would do my own thing. Like, I mean, and now that got taken away, I wanted to get back to that place. And so I would do things to make sure that the people around me knew that. I.e., I would just leave home just to like prove a point, just so like I would hang out with my friends. But I didn't want my parents having to drive me everywhere and all that other stuff, and just constantly saying yes. I wanted them to treat me like a normal person.
right.
My friends, a lot of them didn't know how to deal with it. A lot of them actually backed off, though I found out who my true friends were when I started opening up.
Yeah, and that's a very important thing, opening up to your friends. Um, so this was 6 years ago. 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Now it
I mean,
started.
yeah, close to the six.
The video started freezing up a little bit. I don't know if when I post this, if it will not show that freeze, but the audio worked fine. So I guess that's really the important part. Um, so now what's going on? Now you're in a wheelchair now. You said that's a whole nother story. To sum that up, are you in a wheelchair for X amount of time, or how's that going?
Let me give you an example. So,
Yeah.
so basically, I've got a spinal cord injury. Although there are two types of spinal cord injuries: incomplete and complete. Incomplete being, okay, your spinal cord's been injured. For example, like let's say that there's a 3-lane highway, right? Let's say 2 out of the 3 lanes on either side I have roadworks, right? So you still go like up and down the highway, but you can't get on all the roads, right? So it's affecting the road. That's essentially an incomplete spinal cord injury, where your spinal cord has been affected. It's injured, but it still has some part intact. Now, complete injury, the highway is just completely shut at that point. Basically, the spinal cord has been severed. So I have a complete injury. Well, quote unquote, complete injury. Reason I say that, so when I was in hospital, I was told, Matt, you'll never walk again. Matt, you're stuck in this wheelchair for the rest of your life. You'll never get any sensation back, bladder, bowel, sexual function, none of that's coming back. I didn't like hearing that. And here I am at 16 years old, right? Like
Right.
just in my head. And though I'm quite a stubborn person personally, and I use that to my advantage, especially with this. I didn't want to believe it. Now, it's hard to not believe that when you're in that depressed and broken state of mind. It really is. I would do rehab every so often back then, but now I'm doing it every day. But now I'm brought to a place where I can do sit-to-stands with my physios and my trainers. I can go to the gym and pedal the bike independently.
Yeah.
The thing they which is like unheard of, because the thing is the spinal cord is literally the highway that sends the signals from the brain to the body. But
Right.
below my belly button, the be no nerve signals going through. Now, that I believe is beyond physical. Obviously, you need to be able to do the physical rehab, but I believe the mindset and the belief is what's allowed me for that to come. Now, is it temporary? I believe so. I believe I will be walking again. Absolutely. It's going to be a hard road, but it's going to be worth it. It's just another challenge I'm facing in my life, but it's building up my resilience.
For your sake, man, I hope you do walk again. You seem like a person who can work hard, and I couldn't imagine what you're going through. I just, that sucks. And I appreciate you opening up about it. That means a lot. So now what do you do? Because you said you could use this to your advantage in a sense where you can talk to people about your experiences. Do you go around telling your story to other people as well?
I do, though it didn't just come like, oh, all of a sudden I want to be a speaker. Right. It was never like that.
Right.
So when I was in hospital, there was a day that turned my life around. And do you mind if I share a quick story just based on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this was now 3.5 months into my hospital stay, and my mum and I we caught a train and we went to a suburb called Penrith. We went there just to get some piercings. I still have these piercings on my eyebrow to this day, and I got them done. I was actually happy. I got to say, I liked them. I'd wanted them for weeks while I was in hospital. Got them, smile on my face, feeling good. And on the train ride back to the hospital, halfway through the trip, I'd never met this guy in my life. But he steps on, he looks to his right, and before he even sits down, he just says, Jesus Christ, mate, what the fuck did you do to yourself? Yeah. And he's just like, now, you guys call them rednecks, we call them bogans.
What you call them?
And we call them bogans.
Yeah.
And this guy had no filter. Now, like I said, I didn't like talking to people. And before my injury, I never spoke. Afterwards, nothing had changed. Everyone wanted to know what happened. People in hospital, people that visited me, even strangers, right? But I always said the same thing. I had an accident. I had a fall.
Right.
For the first time, I swear it was a mixture of how abrupt he was, but how happy I was in that moment. It just came out, and I said I attempted suicide. And he looks at me and he says, well, look at you now, because that was pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah. I get, with the Australian accent, it just adds to the story. So that was a guy that you were on a train, and that guy said that to you. What was your response?
I didn't know how to react. I didn't. So he laughed. So I just sort of giggled with him. So I didn't know how. I was so uncomfortable at the time, and he decided to sit next to me and have a conversation. Right. Yeah. But anyways, it was the next morning that I woke up with a sense of lightness and peace that I honestly never had really felt. But this was the first time I went and saw my social worker without waiting for her to have to chase me up. I shared with her, what happened, like the guy on the train, how it made me feel and all that stuff. And I just couldn't put the two together. I was just so whack what happened. And she's like, Matt, there's something there in that though. I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, Matt, you haven't told anyone for 4 months how you're feeling. You haven't told anyone for 4 months what happened to you. You constantly lied. Though you told a stranger the truth, you said, hey, I tried to jump in my own life.
Yeah.
You felt lighter. Matt, what if you could open up to the people close to you in life?
Yeah.
Could you potentially strengthen the relationship you already have with them? And that hit me like a train, because I didn't like talking, but initially all my walls were up. But, my girlfriend was visiting me that night. And for hours, I just dwelled on that question, but it made complete sense. The guy on the train and everything. So I gave it a crack and I started talking to her. And sure enough, and let's just say, Austin, I was in hospital, right? I am scrawny, skinny. But 4 months ago, I was bulky. I was, really muscular, really ripped, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm in a wheelchair. I have all these injuries and I'm in a hospital. And she says to me, Matt, I've never felt closer to you. It's the first time in the longest that I can remember where you're actually being real with me. I've never loved you more. And those words honestly choked me up because at the time it was so much for me.
Yeah.
It was like
Just to hear that.
And yeah, and it challenged every thought that I was having at the time. And I started talking to some of my friends. Like I said, I found out who my real ones were. But then there were two people who I thought were never going to know, my parents.
Yeah.
And so and sure enough, my social worker was right, because the relationships that mattered really did strengthen.
Yeah.
They did. So now I had to work around me. Though it was then 8 months later, I was offered an opportunity by my social worker to share my story. And initially I didn't want to do it, though there was a feeling and it came straight from my heart. And it said, Matt, what if you would help someone? How would that feel? And yeah, I mean, before I said no, I said yes.
Right.
It was.
If you think about it,
it was my.
Think about when right before you were going to jump. Could you have used that type of help from someone else? Like the way you could help somebody today, you could have probably have used that help, correct?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah. So before you jumped off the building, you weren't receiving any type of help. But the way you could help people now, you could have used that type of help back then, right?
The biggest thing for me, and why my social worker was such an impact on my life at the time, was because she was real. She was no bullshit. She was like, this is it. And she was just herself.
Yeah.
She didn't, quote unquote, pussyfoot around the issues. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people do it. She just addressed it how it was, and that's what was needed. Now, that's the one thing I'm so big on. And when I run workshops at corporates, schools, conferences, wherever, universities, my objective is to be, addressing the dirt that's been swept under the rug for so long. I want to bring up the reality of the situation, though leave people knowing more about themselves and how they can rise to their next level.
Yeah.
So actually, no, that answers the question perfectly.
No, it did. It really did. As you could help people when they really need it most, just sharing your story. And I think that's awesome. I'm glad you made it through. I'm glad you're doing better. How are you doing? Are you doing a lot better today mentally, would you say?
A lot better, a lot better. And you couldn't compare. I mean, I like personally, I truly firmly believe I've overcome depression and anxiety, the suicidal thoughts. Don't get me wrong. I still get down. I still have emotions. I still get upset with things. I'm human, but it's a completely different mindset. And that's what people don't understand. Quite often we hear, oh, I'm depressed today. It's like, no, you're upset. And that's okay. But don't confuse the two.
I agree.
Because it's easy to fall into a trap that it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point, which is dangerous.
Yeah, you're always going to have days where you're feeling down. There's a difference between battling depression and feeling blue. Like I said before, there's days where I couldn't get out of bed. It's just been crippling. I actually had to stay in the hospital for 8 days because my mental health was so bad. And one of the things I learned from all of this is talking to your family can really strengthen your relationship. Like my father, he's one of my best friends today. He's very supportive. He's my grandmother. I gotten a lot closer to them. And that's something that I think people who are going through stuff, reach out to family, reach out to friends, because it will really blow your mind how much they can help you. And just sharing your story with them, like you said, can make you feel closer to people.
I believe there are three pillars to having meaningful connection in any relationship. You need presence, you need rapport, and you need vulnerability. Now, the first two people love to work on, but that last one, vulnerability, is such a key and crucial part of it, because you can't have strength in your relationship and support without some level of vulnerability. But it's not just on your end, it's on both ends. That's the thing. And so it's like a seesaw. Like it needs to be like equal effort to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And that's how a meaningful relationship is formed, with those three things.
Absolutely. Very well said, sir. Very well said. I'm going to go ahead now. Like I said, I have some talking points, but really it was just going to be a casual conversation. We didn't have to stick to a script. I'm going to change the I don't know, the topic in a second, because I don't want to keep you too much longer. But I got some questions for you living all the way in Australia. What is life like in Australia? Have you lived there your whole life?
I lived there my whole life. I've and I've moved out of my parents' place like nearly 2 years ago. Although I live in the same suburb.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. You're living on your own now, though.
I live with my best mate from high school.
Okay, yeah. I have a roommate myself. I hear this rumor about Australia that everything either tries to eat you or kill you. Is that true?
People think there are kangaroos hopping around, koalas
that was
going
to be my next question. Are those fuckers boxing in the street?
Yeah, kangaroos kicking cars out of the way. No. It's like I've seen kangaroos before. Like my grandparents, they have like a few acres in and every now and then there'll be a kangaroo hopping around. You just
Are they approachable? Can you approach them or like?
Personally, I've never approached them. I'm a bit intimidated, to be honest. I don't want to get my ass kicked.
Right. Yeah. You hear about stories like that, man. That people just knocked out. Yeah. So that's actually my next question on my list. How often do you see kangaroos? Is it like seeing a bird, like it's often, or is it once in a blue moon?
No. It's like, it depends on where you are, right? I mean, where I am, it's very suburban. I don't really see it at all, really. The only time I've really seen it is when I've driven out. Like, for example, I went and did a talk out at a suburb called Appin, or and it's like southwest Sydney, and there's not much out there. But there's I remember seeing some kangaroos up and around. I was like, that's so cool. It's not often. Depends on where you
are. What side of the road do you guys drive on? Left or right?
Left.
Okay. So I'm trying to think here. We drive on the right, so you drive on the left. That's backwards. How about your money? What is your money called there? Just dollars?
It's just dollars. It's the Aussie dollar. Because you guys have the US dollar, which have the Aussie.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know where it went, but I used to have a $20 bill from, I think it was Australia, and it actually looked really cool. What is it, like green paper? Like, our money's kind of boring compared to other countries. Is it just green paper?
No. So I mean, like, your $5 bill, it's pink, 10 is blue, 20 is red, 50 is gold, and
see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's cool. Like, why don't we do something like that? I mean, whatever. But now here, I'm a big hockey fan, ice hockey. I know you have field hockey. Do you have ice hockey in Australia?
It's not really like common, but at least like in my world, you hear about hockey every now and then, but even then, that's still quite like a I don't say underground, but it's like you don't hear about it much. It's like basketball, NRL, tennis, like those main sports tend to get the main spotlight, but you don't hear about ice hockey. But it is around.
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of like Olympic sports. You don't hear about them too much, but they are there. What about? Do you hear about American football at all down there?
I mean, like, you can obviously get like TV channels that can watch and stream the NFL and all that stuff. I personally don't really watch sport as a whole, and so yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
not my
it's just
biggest.
curious, man, because like everybody talks about how like movies and everything are from America and sports are from America. And we have this idea that this whole world revolves around us, but I really don't think it's like that. And I'm just curious as to how other people view America. Like, what are some stereotypes that you've heard about Americans?
Stereotypes. I mean, like
Is it
nothing really is really coming to mind because
right?
personally, I actually really value how Americans live their lives. They're all about freedom and independence and
Yeah,
personal power. That's what I'm about. And
yeah,
so I
absolutely.
heavily align with America. I like you hear things, but personally, I just filter it out. I don't
Try to
really
keep an
take
open mind type
an
of thing.
interest in it. Well, yeah, because I actually align with you guys.
Yeah.
If there's any other country in the world I live in, I would truly pick the US.
A lot of people would. Um, Now, see, I had this thing where I didn't want to go to Australia because I was afraid that like a giant ass spider was going to eat me or something. But it's not really that scary, is it? It depends on where you are. Like if I'm going out to the boonies, I'm sure I'm going to get eaten by something. But if you live in like suburban area, you'll be all right. Uh, I asked the same thing. I had a guy on my podcast from South Africa, and I asked him, are like lions and stuff trying to eat you? And he said no, but you hear those things. Um, I also learned in school a long time ago that at one point Australia was like a land where they sent the criminals. Is that true? Is that taught in Australian history at all?
Honestly, I'm the worst guy to ask about history. I personally
Yeah.
don't know anything. And the
No.
reason I say that, in high school, I just neglected history, geography. I didn't want to know about it. Like, yeah,
See,
yeah,
that's how a lot
yeah.
of my friends
Unfortunately,
were. I was one of those nerds who kind of wanted to be like a college professor. And if you couldn't tell by the show that I just love the curious mind and talking about different stuff. Um, I got a couple more questions. Do you have
yeah, for sure.
states or provinces?
States.
States? Okay, so it's kind of like this. I don't even know what a province is, to be honest with you. Um,
Neither
you
do I.
you speak English. You speak pretty good English. Is that the official language out there in Australia?
Yeah, it's yeah. Everyone speaks it.
Yeah. Like people in England say we don't speak English, we speak American. Like there's different dialects, if you will. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I feel like every country has its like lingo, so to speak,
right.
and
Like
yeah, but
that brings me
still
to the next
English.
point. What is a Barbie? I
A
hear that a lot.
Barbie.
Yeah, I hear like
You
shrimp on the
got, I mean,
Barbie.
like shiver on the Barbie. Yeah, of course,
Yeah,
barbecue.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I thought. And it means like a grill, right? Like propane type grill.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, next
Hey,
question.
you're all
How
over.
many Outback Steakhouses are there? There's got to be one on like every corner, right? I thought you'd like
Not
that.
quite, not quite.
No.
They're around. Don't get me wrong. It's like one in every corner now.
Right. Yeah. Uh, could
Surely,
you?
surely like, they're an American as well.
They are.
It's an
They
American
are.
thing
But
as well, right?
they
Yeah.
advertise it as an Australian place, and like I was just one like that's the only
Oh yeah.
Australian. Like, what's an Australian food that what might be unique? And I couldn't really think of anything.
I mean, honestly, like it's kind of strange, like where like Australia doesn't really have that kind of culture. Where
Right.
it's such a we're a multicultural country where like well, it's like where is the Aussie culture? And like we have Australian foods, like you have like Vegemite, you got Milo, stuff like that.
Yeah. See, I
But
don't
it's
even know what
like,
those are.
all right.
Yeah. Vegemite. I think I've heard of that before. I think I have heard about that.
Most people don't like it.
No. Do you
Well,
like it?
but personally, I don't mind it. I never really eat it. I
Yeah.
never really buy it. But yeah, most like people that haven't tried it before, they're like, oh, what is this?
Yeah. So Last question. We're going to wrap it up with going back to the mental health awareness. What is the main lesson you take away from your experiences?
If I was to share a message, excuse me, with younger Matt, what I would say is follow your heart. Now that's so vague and so broad of an answer, though. Let me break that down a little bit. Firstly, I didn't like how I was feeling. Though because I didn't like it, I always wanted to hide it away. And so I constantly suppressed, whether it was through drugs, whether it was through hanging out with certain friends, whether it was through the gym, whether it was through other vices, it didn't matter. I never allowed myself the space to feel what I was feeling. I was constantly suppressing. The thing is, how long can you hold your breath for before you like pass out, right? Now, some people can hold it longer than others, but everyone has their breaking point, is my point, right?
Yeah.
You can't suppress your emotions. You must firstly experience them, so allow yourself to feel them, and then express them, so share with those close to you. Experiencing and expressing your emotions is so key, and it's something I'm all about. Because deep down, I actually wanted to. It was just, I believed that I couldn't because no one was talking about it. I didn't know how to address it. It was uncomfortable. It's essentially like walking around naked because you're showing the world who you really are. You're peeling back all the layers, so to speak. And then my passion. What does it mean to do what you love? Now, before my injury, that for me was, okay, I love the gym, but it was just the wrong intentions of why I was getting into it. So that needed shifting. But I love music. Like I've got a guitar right next to me. I've always got music. And if I was to move my camera, you could see my DJ controllers. It's under my laptop right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got music around me all the time. I love it. Though I wish I had just believed in myself and just gone for it. Where I am now, my main thing is inspiring people. So running workshops, I am a mental fitness facilitator. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Though nothing I was willing to die for, my emotions, because of the pain and just how heavy they felt, are now the one thing I live for, as I now inspire mental fitness across the world. So if you were to ask me, Matt, would you go back and change anything you did and not do what you did? I'd tell you no. For I firmly believe that I am the best version of Matt that there could ever be at 22 years old. Nothing I did there was right. I'm not saying it was. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy, though I wouldn't change it for me because it's led me to where I am now, and I wouldn't be as happy and as fulfilled. I guarantee you I'd be dead if I never did it.
Yeah, that's very well said, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But actually, we'll be in touch because now that I know you like music, something as I'm doing, you kind of touched base on it, just going out and doing something you're passionate about. I've always had a passion for like sports commentary. I've always wanted to do my own podcast. And one day I just woke up and I started doing it. But one of the things I got to get better at, and it will get better, is editing. I really don't know how to edit. And one of the things I was thinking about doing was asking somebody to write me a little jingle that could be like the intro of my show. So is that something that you might be able to do for me someday?
Oh, hey man, let's talk about it. Definitely. Yeah. I'm open to it.
All right.
Like I said, I got my guitar here ready, so
yeah,
I can't sing that. So you have to get a singer. But well, happy to put something together. Yeah, why not?
All right, buddy.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. I respect your time, and thank you for coming on. For those of you watching, stay curious. Thank you, Matt. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.